Hi, welcome to The Pursuit of the Truth. It's the 11th of April 2018. Some more on the moon landing. So I've been watching some more videos because I thought I'd better have a bit more detail than the last one, which was basically just the things I could remember, having seen these videos a long time ago. There's an interesting one that I found. It's on YouTube. It's Chemtrails MN, and he goes through the I think it was the Apollo 11 mission, the video of NASA, and he's looking at the shadows and showing how the shadow doesn't move over a period of at least an hour in the viewing that he's looking at. And that, I thought that was interesting because I never thought about that, because obviously the sun on the Earth, you have sundials, isn't it, that show how the sun is moving, and we know if you film something you'll see the shadow move throughout the day. It doesn't stay static. The only place where a shadow stays static is when it's an artificial light source, like a light bulb, or or the lighting that they use for film and television, because it's not moving, it's staying stationary, whereas the sun is moving, or the Earth is moving. Well, everyone's moving, isn't it? That's what, well, if that's what is true. The only thing I could, so I thought about that, and I thought, oh yeah, that would suggest that, okay, it's an artificial light source. But then I wanted to check about, is there a night on the moon, and if there was an answer to why the shadows don't move on the moon. The only thing I could find was that the moon takes 28 days, 28 Earth days to turn on its axis. So I don't know if that could be the reason why the shadow never changed, but I don't know. Obviously, because isn't it the moon is going around the Earth is going around the sun. So I don't know, as that is the case, could it be because it's taking so long to turn, whereas on the Earth we're turning faster, so the shadow moves faster? So I don't know, that may be the answer to that one. But it shows how you've got to be careful about holding on to something, and this is often the problem when it comes to science or conspiracy, whichever one you want to believe, is that we as humans, we hold on to the things that we want, that we believe. You disregard the things, you see something, I mean, even I do it, I'll see on YouTube someone debunking a conspiracy theory, and I'll get bored of it, not always, sometimes I will listen to it, but then I'll probably end up thinking, yeah, that's just what they're saying, but I can see another video where they say, and I'll believe that one at the end. So yeah, we do, by our own beliefs, we do stick to those things. So it is problematic sometimes being objective, truly. And this is the same with science, it's the same with conspiracy. It's a human problem. Now, what the other things? The other thing I was thinking about was War of the Worlds by Orson Welles, because they were suggesting that, what about the sound? And this one's very interesting, because when you hear the sound of the Apollo 11, you hear, I think it's Neil Armstrong talking to ground control, and you can hear him through his microphone, and he's in this small metal capsule that is flying, I would have thought, pretty fast, down to the moon, with propulsion that's going to stop it going fast. They're basically sitting on top of the engine. It's not a very big capsule, so even people when they're in aeroplanes, even people when they're in small little jet planes, when you speak to them, you can hear the noise. Yeah. So how is it possible that his sound is so clear? You can hear him nicely. It is really weird. It doesn't make sense. It's very problematic, and it lends to that theory that what we were hearing was recorded in the studio as opposed to in outer space, because it shouldn't have been that clear. not with the technology. And then I was thinking about War of the Worlds by Orson Welles, and it was that like a test to see whether people would believe, and you know, these types of things. Because the sound, it reminded me of the same kind of sound, you know. So I was just thinking that, you know, that fooled a lot of people. And well, even if it wasn't, you know, I'm not saying like, oh, they decided to tell Orson Welles, please make this thing, and, you know, make out that it's, you know, try and make people believe. What I believe is that it proves or shows that humans can believe things that are false, but not knowing that they're believing that to be the case. We're easily swayed, as that proves. The other thing is dust, obviously. Why, when the capsule, when it lands, there wasn't a crater, there wasn't too much dust. You know, because when they're jumping around in this stuff, you see a lot of dust movement. So this huge great, well, it wasn't a huge great capsule, but it was quite heavy, I would have thought. It had them two in it, and it had the moon buggy in it as well. So it seems to land very simply, very flat. The other thing is obviously sound. And this is the problem, because it depends what you believe. Because, you know, when you come to flat Earth, you start to understand that most of the things you've been told, you don't know whether they're true or not. And the problem is then and as humans, we hold on to certain things for our arguments. You know, like we'll say, well, no, there's no such thing as space. We couldn't go to the moon because we couldn't get past the Van Allen belt. But wait a minute, how do we know that the Van Allen belt actually really exists? Because if they can lie about one thing, they can lie about everything. But we tend to cling on to certain things that prove our theories. We don't know. That's the problem, and that's why some people, you know, suggest that you should stick to things that you can prove, that are, you know, that you can actually. You actually have the capacity to do that, because no one has the capacity to go up to space and see if there is a Van Allen belt out there or not. And we don't know where about it is. So the thing is, like, sound. We're supposed to be outside the Earth. It's supposed to be a vacuum space, a very, very small amount of pressure, hardly any at all. On the moon, there's no atmosphere, there's not meant to be it. So how is there sound? Because you see on one of the missions, they're hitting with a hammer and you hear the sound. Now, NASA claims that's because his hand is touched to it and he's becoming like a drum. But then there's another piece of footage, I think it was Apollo 17, where you see one of the astronauts next to the module throw something up and it hits the module. It's not, when it hits the module, he's not touching the module doesn't have microphones. On the outside, there's it hits the module and you hear a sound. So how is that sound created if there's no atmosphere? Before I was thinking about the moon landing. When I mentioned before, I mentioned about you know, that maybe, you know, the reason, you know, that there could be space if we disregard the idea of it being a vacuum, and maybe there is air out in space. And then I was thinking, oh, a minute, there's no trees out in space. But then I was remembering, because my understanding was always that, you know, like the Amazon rainforest was the lungs of the world, and that was giving us all the oxygen that we're breathing. But then I saw that Strange Rock, Will Smith, Darren Aronofsky, or however you say his name, documentary, National Geographic, I think it is, on Strange Rock, about and it suggested that no, all that oxygen that those trees make, they never get to the rest of us. They're consumed by the actual Amazon rainforest. I don't know if that's a piece of propaganda to sort of now say, oh yeah, you can cut it down, it doesn't matter about it. But when I was Googling it, it was mentioning, because I was thinking, oh, a minute, I just said something really stupid. There can't be air out in space because there's no trees, space trees. So then I was looking up, you know, how do we get air, and it was suggesting that it is phytoplankton, something like that. Probably not a great pronunciation. And this is what produces the oxygen that we breathe. So I was thinking, well, there can't be these plankton fish, I assume they're fish or algae or whatever they are, out in space. But then they have found some things. But then I saw that there was a Russian cosmonaut that found outside, I don't know if it's IS, that they said they found plankton outside. Well, if that's the case, then maybe there is oxygen out in space and there is no vacuum, and that would explain everything. Maybe that was taught to us so that we think that not everyone can leave. I don't know. It all depends, like, what is the conspiracy, what's true, what's lie, what's not. The thing is, for my theory to work, I need to believe there's an IS and there are people out there. And if there are people out there, then why can't we go onto the moon? The only problematic thing, other than losing all the data, so that, because then what people always ask, well, why don't we go back to the moon? And they say, well, we don't have the telemetry data. Well, you lost all that? You can't work it out again? You telling me that people without computers, or a very rudimentary computer, worked it out, but us with our supercomputers can't work it out now? It's rubbish, isn't it? And then I was thinking about, this Van Allen bout, and I was thinking about, if it was as, if we are actually living in a dome, there is no space, or there is space, but we're in a protected dome that keeps the vacuum out from us, and that we can't actually leave it. Because you do see footage of cameras attached to rockets. There was an amateur one that went up and it stopped at a certain 100,000 feet, and it seemed to hit. It sounded like it hit glass. I don't know what that sound was, but it then makes you wonder then why, when the space race was going on in the US and Russia, why did Russia just stop? Why didn't they continue? I mean, if it was a real thing, if there really was a moon to go to, then why wouldn't they have gone up there to do their own experiments for their own achievement? They'd spent billions on it. The only reason I can think of now is they wouldn't do it is because they knew there was no such thing, and that everyone else saw that America had got up there, so it would be a waste of money. There was no real reason to do it. Because if it was real, why wouldn't they have gone up there? Why has no one else decided that I'm going to go to the moon? Other space programs, I think India, China, they both have them, even Europe with ESA. Why have they decided, no, it's too difficult? Wait a minute, someone in 1960 did it. You look at all the disadvantages compared to today, what we have, the technology we have now, the knowledge that we have now, is far outseas. Someone in the 1960s is like a caveman compared to now. And yet you're telling me that we can't do it. It's, yeah. The other thing I was thinking was also about the famous press conference after Apollo 11, with all the astronauts looking all very sad, and they just they just done something that no one else had ever done. You think they'd be so buzzing, but they were like depressed, sad. I don't know. It was really, really weird. A weird conference that they gave, and I think that's everything that I have on the moon landing. So yeah, I'm sure I'll come back with more if I find more about it. But it's very interesting. Obviously, when you talk about IS, the International Space Station, the ISS. You have lots of footage of air bubbles, and they suggest that it's filmed in a tank. Oh, that reminds me, this is another thing I was going to talk about, is the simulation. That apparently before they went there, and this does make sense, that they did simulate what it would be like so they could practice. And we know that they simulate the practices in water as well. That's why a lot of people say that ISS, the footage is filmed underwater with green screen, and that's why you sometimes see bubbles. But the thing that when you look at some of the moon footage, and people pointed out that it looks like they're using not ropes, what is it, like fish wire to pull them up, because there's a scene, a very famous one, where you see one astronaut fall over and he tells him to hit him on his head. I don't know why he tells him to do that, and he seems to be lifted up from his back, from his top, rather than the feet which are on the ground. Humans, that's how we operate, isn't it? We push by our hands, we push by our feet. So he seems to be able to push by his back, which, if you saw that on Earth, you'd think, oh, that's, or you see it or in a film, you'd say, oh, there's wires pulling them up. So there are a few shots like that, even on the ISS. I've seen suggestion that they're using wires to create that effect. is interesting. But if they did simulation, then obviously they could have easily just used that. I mean, I'm still thinking that it's possible that, and a lot of people do believe this, and maybe this is, I'll tell you the reason why. I believe that Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, they didn't really go there. They were the face of the mission. They was filmed in a set somewhere. That's why the lights all stay the same. That's why they need the wires. And that's why, you know, all those things that don't make sense occur on this footage. But real people did go up there, and it was just safety, because if anything went wrong, you know, a bit like Capricorn 1, the film, that would make sense, you know. It's like a guarantee, because you never see who's inside the astronaut suit, and I guess the voice on the microphone, it could be anyone with those cheap old microphones they must have been using, or even that sound, but it could have been coming from on the Earth. So that makes sense. But then, of course, that could be what we're allowed to believe, in the sense that if there is no such thing as space, if we are, you know, there's no, you know, the moon is within the Earth's gravitational field, you know, within the Earth's sphere, as it were. It's not really outside, you know, it's below the Van Allen belt. Then obviously that, you know, having that theory of that it was filmed on here allows that theory of that space actually existing to really exist still. So it could be that that's why we're allowed to believe that. Other people believe that we're allowed to believe that, or we're told to believe that to hide from the truth, that maybe there was more up on the moon, you know, alien type of stuff that's been hidden, and that's why explains the anomalies. Anyway, that's enough for now. Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.